You're probably aware of the sort of build-up to having a war with Iran by the Trump administration and the Pentagon and, the national security state. They're all sort of, banging the drums of war along with the corporate mainstream media. Anyway, just today I noticed that the Pentagon is putting before Congress to send 10,000 troops to the Middle East in order to for this building up of escalation of aggression towards Iran. More saber-rattling, which will probably actually become more than saber-rattling, but we can only hope that it doesn't. But on Twitter, I've mentioned Eyes Left podcast, which is two vets, an Iraq vet and an Afghanistan vet, Michael Preisner and Spencer Rapone, and they posted on their Twitter page today, now would be a very good time to refuse your orders. They're talking to the military here. Please direct message us or email us or for help, or contact the GI Rights hotline, and it has a website address which is girights.hotline.org. And when you go to that particular site, it gives you information on how to resist, how to basically how to get the hell out of these immoral wars. And it is possible. And so if you know of anybody who is in the military and is, whether they're one of those military who is going to be sent to the Middle East in relation to this war that they're proposing to have on Iran, this aggressive war for resources and hegemony, then you can sort of put them onto that particular site, gihotline.org. And on this GI Rights hotline, it has, which is for military discharges and military counselling, it has call 1-877-477-4487. That's 1-877-447-4487. That's the number people can call if they're in the military and they need counselling or they need information on how they can be discharged from the military. That's the number to call. And it says on this site, do you know your rights? Are you in the military or thinking about joining? Are you unsure of where to get reliable answers? Call the GI Rights hotline, and then they give the number. Call for yourself or someone you care about, free and confidential, one hotline for nationwide network of counselling centres. And then it gives information about if you're calling from Korea. The GI Rights hotline provides accurate, helpful counselling and information on military discharges, AWOL and UA and GI Rights. Why should I call this number? The GI Rights Network is a private, non-profit, non-governmental organisation that answers thousands of calls from military personnel and their families. There are many reasons for these calls. You can call for help with any of the following issues. DEP discharges, that's delayed entry program, the entry-level separation, dependency or hardship discharges, and it goes through a whole list of different ones. What will happen when I call? You will be helped by a trained GI counsellor. If a counsellor is unavailable, you may leave a voice message or contact the hotline by email or text message. And it says our trained civilian counsellors are ready to help you sort out your options. Call now. The call and the service are free and confidential. So, and it goes on. So anyway, that's a very comprehensive site. It's got resources, what they're about, and about conscientious subjection. And it's something that I hope that you will pass on to any military personnel, whether they've been thinking about these wars and what on earth they're doing involved in them, or whether they're going to be deployed or whatever, and sort of pass this on, and hopefully they might think about leaving. When all soldiers end up sort of ditching these immoral wars, when they kind of go, that's enough, that's when everything will really come crashing down, when soldiers refuse to be engaged and involved in these immoral wars. So that's a really important thing, and that's why I love Eyes Left podcasts. And then I saw also Michael Preisner tweet this today, and he's a socialist, as some people might know. He's also a co-producer of the Empire Files and, of course, as I mentioned, the Islev podcast. He's one of the co-hosts on Islev podcast. So anyway, Michael Preisner tweeted today, fascist movements worldwide have historically targeted socialists as their number one enemy because they are their opposite, an answer to capitalism's decay based on solidarity, not racism, workers' power, not owners' power, gender equality, not hypo-machismo, peace, not militarism. And then they sort of showed how these fascist alt-righters sort of discuss. He showed these screenshots of how the Proud Boys are discussing what weapons they want to kill quote unquote commies, with which cops are sympathetic, and how they'll bait protesters into throwing the first punch so that they can claim self-defense. Then they defuse because they know what they're doing is bad. So they sort of, it talks about basically how the cops protect alt-righters, particularly when they're attacking the left. Another thing I saw today is really awful, where the US is preparing to put on more sanctions onto a program that the Venezuelan government has had in place called CLAP, C-L-A-P. It's a government program which provides 6 million Venezuelan households with food staples and supplies on a monthly basis. And that's absolutely depraved, because that means that all those 6 million, this is on top of the 40,000 Venezuelans who have been killed so far with US sanctions. US crippling sanctions. You'll never hear that in the mainstream media. 40,000 Venezuelans since 2017. And now the US government is putting on this more crippling sanctions which will interfere with the Maduro government's, the Venezuelan government's CLAP program that helps, that is essential really for 6 million families. You know, this is just a genocide that the US government is in. It's collective punishment. They always claim that these sanctions, which by the way are an act of war, but the US always claims these sanctions they somehow affect the people in power. No, they don't. They actually cripple the society of that country, and they're hoping, of course, that people will then push back on the government because of these sorts of things. It's just disgusting, though. So, and any time anybody starts claiming that the government doesn't care, the Venezuelan government doesn't care about their citizens, and that's why they're starving, just remind them that the US crippling sanctions have killed 40,000 Venezuelans so far, and there's many, many suffering, and there's probably many more to come. And now they put on these sanctions that will affect that program, which affects 6 million Venezuelans, just with basic food, resources, etc. Just remember that, and please say that to anybody who starts promoting propaganda by the US government about Venezuela. So on to Chelsea Manning. Apparently Chelsea Manning's Chelsea Resist, which is promotes the legal fund for Chelsea Manning's grand jury subpoena. As you might know, that while she's been put in prison again. This is the third time. The first time she was in prison for 7 years. The second time she was in jail for 2 months and 3 days because she did not want to participate in a secret grand jury, and because she says it's unconstitutional. I think it was the First, the Fourth, and the Sixth Amendments. So she refuses, and they put her in again after the grand jury expired. Then they put her in again into prison a few days ago, and she has another couple of months to go in the jail, and so they've also put the second time they put a financial burden on her, which will amount to $18,000, and I imagine that they're going to, if she doesn't sort of comply, if she doesn't cooperate with the grand jury, and if she refuses once again, they'll probably put her in again after that. Again, give her a week out, and then she'll be back in prison again, and they'll probably put worse fines on her than this $18,000. It's awful. It's a terrible coercion, and she says she is not going to cooperate. She refuses, and this is all about, sort of Julian Assange and trying to skew and use information to prosecute Julian Assange and throw him in solitary confinement and throw away the key. That's what this is all about. And they're punishing her. It's a sort of a transphobic thing too, I think. Anyway, so on the Chelsea Resist page, it says, "We've hit 100,000 of our 150,000 goal for Chelsea's legal fund. Thank you. This is turning out to be a drawn-out fight. Chelsea appreciates your ongoing support." I invite people to please make a donation to that fund, because it's very, very important. They're going to probably place more fines on her to coerce her into testifying, and that will be awful, and it's wrong. The whole thing is totally wrong, and also she needs money, of course, to be able to fight legally these unjust sort of grand jury subpoena, secret grand juries, etc. So please donate to that, and I'll leave a link, or you can find on Twitter. You can find at XY Chelsea, I think. Anyway, I'll put a link to that. It's actionnetwork.org. And then I saw something that's pretty sort of scary. I've known about the sexual assault problem within the military, but recently on a submarine, according to the U.S. Defense Department, there was these sailors had a rape list. All the particular female military personnel on board, there was a rape list of those female military personnel, of what they'd like to do with them, etc. I mean, this is the sort of conditions that women have to endure in the military, and it's not surprising because of how the awful immoral things that go on toward populations in these various countries that the U.S. is invading. The whole thing is immoral, what's happening in the Middle East, and the awful things that are done to civilian populations that happen in any war. But, it goes to these extreme, all these different ones that are sort of being involved in these wars. I mean, you only have to see what happened in Collateral Murder, the one of the videos released from Chelsea Manning. That happens pretty much every day. If you listen to the dialogue that accompanies that particular video, Collateral Murder, it's pretty horrific, the way they talk about people, civilians in those countries. So is it any surprise that, that within their own ranks in the military, there would be rape, because, misogyny is rampant. I mean, where you have one form of discrimination, misogyny, racism, sexism, heterosexism, the whole sort of thing, they all go together. They're all faces of the same ignorance. They're all discriminations that target a group based on irrelevant criterions. That's why I talk about veganism as speciesism is a discrimination which targets a group which happens to be non-human animals based on an irrelevant criterion, which is species, and then they're targets of violence. And that's why I promote veganism. One of the reasons, because sentient animals are not our resources. But in this case, it is no surprise that in the military, they have all of that, including speciesism. I mean, many years ago, and I'm sure this happens frequently too, there was some soldier threw a puppy over a cliff, and people, it all goes together, tormenting animals. And of course, in the case of veganism, we're eating, wearing, and using animals every day, so we don't have to be in the military to be participating in violence, of course, because, all these animals, somebody is killing them and somebody is raising them and torturing them for us. So, but it's all related. All these discriminations are all related and cause violence. So this rape list on board this submarine is no surprise that misogyny is rampant in the military. I'm sure there are soldiers that are not misogynist, but I think that sort of goes with the territory. And so this, I was reading this Telesur English article, and it said, rape list on board submarine, according to the U.S. Defense Department, sexual assaults have reportedly increased in the military, climbing to nearly 40% in 2018. Some 6,053 cases were reported last year, according to an anonymous source, a biannual survey the Pentagon confirmed. Well, you can guarantee that 6,053 cases, that it is a lot more than that, because I've heard that when women in the military complain about sexual assault or go to officers, I think it's something that they end up becoming targets of bullying by the military, and eventually I think they end up being sort of driven out. That's what happens a lot of the time when you complain about being sexually assaulted. You end up, of course, being persecuted further and victimized further. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to say, so please click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please click the notifications bell, otherwise you don't receive updates when I drop a video, and hit the like button if you like the content, and also please leave comments. I always enjoy your comments, so thanks so much for watching. And if you're not vegan, please go vegan and check out my vegan resource podcast, howtogovegan.org. Till next time, bye for now.